Abu al-Fadl Abbas, the standard bearer slash flagman, Abbas Kamar, Banu Hashim, the moon of the Hashemites, who was next only to the holy Imam in charge of the holy Imam's camp, after a very strenuous fight with the enemy at the river, got a sack of water, but when the sack filled with water was placed before the thirsty children, the poor innocents, not waiting till it was properly opened, and not knowing how to open the sack, rushed to it and fell upon it, one over the other, in the haste to at least cool their burning bodwise. But alas! The knot at the mouth of the sack gave way to the pressure, and the whole water flowed away on the sand. It can be imagined what the feelings of despair and disappointment of the poor children and the helpless mothers would have been, and how disappointed the brave son of Imam Ali Piba, who got the water, would have felt at the loss of the water which he could get for the poor children and the inmates of the camp, after so much of fight with the enemy guarding the banks of the river. Attempts to dig a well were also made, but in vain, for instead of water, stones came out. The holy Imam preached patience and fortitude to every one at each disappointment and torture, saying, "Be you all cheerful, and always surrender to the will of the all-merciful Lord, for the end of all these trials is at hand, and the water of paradise awaited there to quench your thirst." After the Zuhr prayers on the day of Ashura, one by one the brave companions of Imam Hussain fell in the battlefield. At last only Imam Hussain, Ali Akbar and Abbas were left. Imam Zainul Abidin Sajjad lay sick in his tent. Several times Abbas asked Imam Hussain for permission to go and fight. Each time Imam Hussain would reply, "Abbas, you are the captain of my army. You are my Alamdar, the standard bearer." Abbas would never argue with Imam Hussain. His 3 brothers were killed in the battle fought after Zuhr. Imam Hussain could see the anger in Abbas's eyes. Imam Hussain knew that if he let Abbas go and fight, there would be a massacre in the enemy rank. Imam Hussain's object was to reawaken Islam, and not to score a victory on the battlefield. Just then Sakina, according to other reports, Rokhaya is the name, 4-year-old daughter of Imam Hussain, came out holding dried-up leather bag mash. She walked up to Abbas and said, "Al-Atash, Ya Mahu, I am thirsty, O my uncle Abbas." Abbas went to Imam Hussain Ba and requested for permission to go and get water for Sakina. Imam Hussain gave his permission. Abbas put Sakina's mashk on the standard alam, mounted his horse, and rode up to Imam Hussain. He said, "I have come to say goodbye." Imam Hussain said, "My brother, come and embrace me." Abbas dismounted his horse. There were tears in Imam's eyes. As Abbas prepared to mount his horse, Imam Hussain said, "My brother, I want a gift from you. I want your sword." Abbas, without uttering a word, gave Imam Hussain his sword and rode into the battlefield, armed only with a spear and holding the alam. Now note this majestic scene. What greatness, what valor, what a spirit of understanding and self-sacrifice. A lone warrior, alone by himself, advances against a host. The number of men who guarded the river bank was 4,400. They had all heard of the valor of Abbas. A cry arose, "Abbas is coming." Yazid's soldiers started hiding behind one another. A few brave ones dared go near Abbas, but were soon put to death by the spear or by a kick. He descends along the river bank Euphrates Furat and leads his horse into the water. First he fills the water-skin mashk that he has brought and lays it on his shoulder. He himself was very thirsty. The air is hot and has been fighting. But as he sits on the back of his horse, and the horse stands in water, reaching up to its belly, he lowers his hands into water, takes water into them, and raises them somewhat towards his sacred lips. Those who were watching from a distance report that he hesitated for a while. Then they saw that he threw the water back and came out of the river without drinking any. He placed the mashk on his alam and started to ride back. No one knew why Abu al-Fadl did not drink water there. Out Reicuer, recited Roj, as verses which were addressed to himself. Now from these verses they understood why he had not drunk water. O soul of Abu al-Fadl, my wish is that you live not after Hussain. Will you have a drink of cold water, while there stands Hussain, thirsty, near the tents, and about to drink the cup of death? Such is not the way of my faith, nor that of one who abides in conviction and truth. Yuma son of Saud cried out, Do not let that water reach Hussain's camp, otherwise we shall all be doomed. A soldier climbed a tree, and as Abbas was riding past the tree, he struck his sword on the right shoulder, and the arm fell on to the ground. Just then someone crept behind Abbas and struck him on the left shoulder. The alam fell down. Abbas gripped the mashk with his teeth. His only object was to get the water to Sakina. Fighting with his feet, he urged the horse to get him to Imam's camp as quickly as possible. Alas, an arrow was shot. It went flying across the desert and hit the mashk. The water began to pour out, and with the water all the hopes of Abbas poured on to the sands of Karbala to be buried forever in the thirsty desert. Abbas now did not want to go back and face Sakina. With his feet he signaled the horse to turn back. The enemy surrounded him from all sides. Abbas fell from the horse. As he fell, he cried out, My salutations, salam to you, my master Mawla. Imam Hussain seemed to lose all his strength when he heard the voice of his dear brother Abbas. When Abbas left to go to fetch water, Imam stood at the gate of the camp, watching the alam. Sakina was standing next to Imam Hussain, also with her eyes fixed on the alam. When Abbas reached the river bank and bent down to fill the mashk, the alam disappeared from sight. Sakina was frightened and looked at her father. Imam said, Sakina, your uncle Abbas is at the river bank. Sakina smiled and said, Alhamdulillah, and called out all the children to welcome Abbas. When Abbas lost both arms, the alam fell onto the ground. Sakina could not see it any longer. She looked at Imam Hussain, but he turned his face away. Sakina began to tremble with fear, and her eyes filled with tears. She raised her hands and prayed, O my God, do not let them kill my uncle Abbas. I will never ask for water again. And ran inside to her mother. Imam Hussain reached where Abbas was lying. It was a tragic sight. Abbas was lying on the ground. Both arms had been severed. There was an arrow in the right eye, and blood blocked the left eye. As soon as Abbas sensed the presence of Imam Hussain, he said, Mawla, why did you take the trouble to come over? Please go back and look after Sakina. Imam Hussain said, My dear brother, all your life you have served me and my children. Is there anything I can do for you at this last moment of your life? Abbas replied, Mawla, please clean the blood from my eye so that I can see your beloved face before I die. Imam cleaned the blood. Abbas fixed his gaze on Imam. Then he said, Mawla, please do not carry my body to the camp. I do not wish Sakina to see me in this state. Imam Hussain took Abbas in his arms and kissed his forehead. Imam Hussain said, O Abbas, I also have one request for you. I have never heard you call me brother. For once I would like to hear you call me brother. Abbas, with his dying breath, called out, My brother. Imam Hussain cried, O Abbas, my beloved brother, what have they done to you? Who is now left to fight by my side now? Just then the 34-year-old Abbas son of Imam Ali Piba breathed his last. Imam Hussain placed Sakina's mashk on the alam and carried the alam to the camp. He went to Zainab's tent. Imam Hussain could not say a word. He gave the alam to Zainab and sat down on the floor. Baby Ali Asghar Abd Allah comes into battlefield when Imam Hussain stood all alone in the battlefield, surrounded by the enemies. He was summoned by a call from his sister Zainab in his camp. When he went into the tent, he found his six-month-old baby son Ali Asghar dying of thirst in his cradle, and the poor mother Rubab, whose milk had dried up by the continuous thirst and hunger, could not help the baby with even a drop of milk, telling the mother that he would show the baby to the enemy and get some water for it if they give it. Imam Hussain took the babe to the battlefield by covering with his robe and raising it up in his arms to enable everyone in the enemy's forces to see it, and said, O people, If in your opinion Hussain is guilty of any sin or crime, this innocent babe has done nothing to hurt any one of you. It does not even speak, and has not even uttered anything against you or your Amir at Damascus. He is dying of thirst. He had neither milk nor water for the last 3 days. Would you quench his thirst by a few drops of water? If you suspect that I demand water for myself in the name of the babe, then I will leave it here if you want, and go easy, and you may return it with his thirst quenched. It is reported that the address of the holy Imam and the scene, with the thirsty innocent babe in his hands, was so touching, so pathetic, and so heart-rending that even the men in the enemy's army could not help weeping and cursing the Yazid and his deputy Ubayd Allah son of Ziyad, governor of Kufa, who had gathered them there against such holy ones. Umar son of Sa'd, fearing a revolt of his forces in sympathy for the holy Imam, at once ordered a stone-hearted brute named Hermula to answer Hussain. The tyrant shot an arrow from his bow, which, after piercing through the Imam's arm, got stuck into the tiny neck of the innocent babe. Blood gushed out of his neck and splashed onto Imam Hussain's face. Ali Asghar died in his father's arms with his smiling face. Imam Hussain P.B. walked back to the camp, weeping with Ali Asghar in his arms. At the door he waited for a moment and then turned back. This he did 7 times, as if he was building his strength to face the mother of the baby who had been so brutally murdered. Rubab looked at her husband's face covered in blood and cried out, "What have they done to my son? Did they even give him a drop of water before they killed him?" Imam Hussain said, "I pleaded with them to give him water, but instead they drenched him with blood." Rubab said, "Please bury Ali Asghar with your own hands." Hence he sat down to bury his baby son in the burning sand of the desert by digging a grave using sword. After that he looked up and said, "O Almighty God, bear witness that I have done my duty to the last. Does not even this one single sacrifice suffice to touch every human heart? Can we not call this one sacrifice alone greater than the sacrifice offered by Abraham? God alone knows the degree of the patience and the fortitude which he had endowed in the Imam Hussain P.B. to bear the series of such unbearable calamities. The Hashemite Prince Ali Akbar's martyrdom after Abbas came the turn of Ali Akbar to go to the battlefield. The battle drums of the enemies were now getting louder and louder. It is reported that this 18-year-old son was so very much loved by one and all in the camp that the account of his taking leave of his aunts, sisters, brothers, and other relatives is so pathetic that none can resist shedding at least a few tears over the heart-rending event. At last, when the holy Imam sent Ali Akbar, the Umayyad Thani Muhammad II, to the battlefield, he raised his head towards heaven and said, "Lord, here I sent in your way the one who resembled the most with the holy Prophet Muhammad. Whenever we did desire to have a view of the holy face departed away from us, we used to look at the face of this youth. Lord, Hussain has won Ali Akbar, and he is sent to be sacrificed for your cause. Had I many more like him, I would have similarly offered them all in your way. Is not this offer more acceptable to God than that of Abraham, who offered with his eyes blindfolded? Is not this a greater sacrifice than that of Ishmael?" When Ali Akbar went to the battlefield and faced the enemy with all the bravery that he inherited from his grandfather Imam Ali Piba, it is reported that the enemy forces were so much amazed at his resemblance with the Holy Prophet that such of those who had seen him before wondered if the Holy Prophet P.B. had reappeared in the world to help his dear grandson Hussain. People were so anxious to have a look at the enchanting beauty of the youth that those in the rear of the enemy's ranks, mounted on the horses and camels, even stood on the backs of the animals to have a look at the matchless and the wonder-striking beauty of this son of the holy Imam. Ali Akbar reminded the enemy that his father, Imam Hussain, spent his life in the way of Islam and did no harm to them. By spilling his blood, they were making the Holy Prophet P.B. very sad. Umar son of Saud told his troops not to listen to Ali Akbar and ordered them to attack him. One by one he fought them with great skill and killed many of them. Ali Akbar received several wounds and was losing a lot of blood. The thirst was getting more unbearable. At the moment he longed to see his loved ones for the last time. Ali Akbar turned his horse back towards his camp. He found his aged 57 father standing at the entrance of the tent, watching the battle between his beloved thirsty son and the enemy. Holy Hussain congratulated his son, and then said, "I am sad that I do not have any water to give you." Ali Akbar met each and every one of his family. They were all in tears because they knew that this time he wasn't coming back alive. It was not long before Imam Hussain heard the painful cry from the battlefield. Ali Akbar fell with a fatal wound in his chest. He called out to his father to come to him quickly. Imam Hussain went towards his son and found him lying in a pool of his own blood. When he saw his son, he cried out, "Here, I am, my son. Please talk to me." Ali Akbar was in great pain. The broken end of the lance was sticking out of his chest, and blood was gushing out. Ali Akbar died in his father's arms. God alone knows what a patient heart the holy Imam had been endowed with, which never gave way against any catastrophe, even that of the loss of such a son. The holy Imam stood looking at his son dying before his eyes, and lifting his head towards heaven said, "Lord, it will be quite sufficient for your Hussain if you accept this sacrifice, and if you are pleased with this humble offer." Imam Hussain lifted Ali Akbar carefully, as if protecting him from any more pain. He cried all the way back to his camp. Note, Layla, daughter of Abu Mara and the cousin of Yazid, is the mother of Ali Akbar. According to scholars, she was not alive at the time of Karbala. Hussain hands over the charge of the imamate Imam Ali, the eldest son of Hussain, called Zainal Abidin Grace of the Pious or Sajjad, was lying unconscious on his sick bed. Hussain went to him and handed over the charge of the sacred office of imamate to him. He enumerated the difficulties and the tortures that would befall him, immediately following his martyrdom, and advised him, who was to succeed as the fourth holy imam, to observe the highest degree of patience and fortitude against every aggression and oppression that would be inflicted on him and his dear ones, and never to get angry or curse the people. Note, according to another report, when Imam Hussain went into the tent of Imam Zainal Abidin to bid him good-bye, Imam Zainal Abidin asked him, "Father, how did things come about between you and these people?" Imam Zainal Abidin was unaware of what was happening until that time. The Imam Hussain said to him, "Son, this matter has ultimately led to a battle. What happened to Habib son of Muzahar?" Asked Imam Zainal Abidin. "He was martyred." Replied the Imam Hussain, "How about Zuhair son of al-Kain?" "He was also martyred." Replied the Imam Hussain. "What happened to Burair son of Qudayr al-Hamadani?" "He was martyred," said Imam Hussain. Imam Zainal Abidin continued naming each of his father's companions one after another, and the Imam's reply was the same. Then he asked concerning the men of Banu Hashim, "What happened to Qasim? What happened to my brother Ali Akbar? What happened to my uncle Abbas?" The answer was the same: they all have been martyred. This is a fabrication and a lie. Imam Zainal Abidin Nadhubillah was not so sick and unconscious as not to know what was going on. Historians have written that even in that state of illness he rose from his bed and said to Zainab, "Aunt, bring me my staff and give me a sword." Details can be read from next heading. The last call of the holy Imam in the way of the Lord, lest later anyone in the surroundings should say that he was neither called nor given any opportunity to serve the cause of defending truth by helping the holy Imam who was fighting for it. Imam Hussain now standing all alone, with the enemy forces all around him, bleeding from innumerable wounds from head to toe, having lost one, and all of his godly comrades' sons, brothers, nephews, and companions, gave his last call to humanity around him, inviting them to join him in the way of the Lord, saying, "Hal min nasirin yansurana? Is there any helper to help us? Hal min zabin yazabo and haram Rasulullah? Is there any defender to repulse the enemy from approaching the tents of the family of the Holy Prophet? When there was no response from any one of the thousands standing around him, he then said aloud, Alam tasma'u, alaysa fikum Muslim, or do you hear me not? Is there not even a single Muslim among you? Yet there was no response. When Imam Hussain gave his final call to the world around him, inviting the people in the way of the Lord, Imam Hussein's son Ali Zainal Abidin, who was confined to bed with high fever and who had just a little before received the charge of the imamate from his father, got up and, leaning on a staff, dragged himself out of his tent with his feeble sickly voice, walking towards the holy Imam, saying, Labbaik, Ya Bata, Labbaik, yes. Here I am, O father dear, here I am. Imam Hussain, seeing his ailing Ali coming out tottering in the high fever, bade him, saying, Get back, O son, my progeny is to spring from you. It is reported that in response to the call from the holy Imam, some mysterious voices of Labbaik, Labbaik, yes, we are here, O son of the Holy Prophet, were heard from the spiritual world above, to which the holy Imam replied, Thanks to you all, but my concern here today is only with the living in physical world. The unique unparalleled prayer namaze every awakened mind will surely confess that it is not possible for any mortal to understand the great heavenly personality which enacted the absolute submission to the Lord which he displayed on the field of Karbala. Having lost every one of his faithful comrades, including his baby son, himself fully wounded from head to toe with arrows struck in his holy body, with his blood flowing from the wounds, his clothes drenched with blood, and that of his comrades, his kith and kin, whose dead bodies he removed from the field of the massacre to a tent in his camp to spare them from being trampled under the hoofs of the cavalry of the heartless enemy. Hungry with choking thirst for the last 3 days, Hussain was seen seated on his horse, the Zul Jinnah, looking every now and then towards heaven with prayers for the acceptance of his sacrifices. In the midst of the indescribable miseries, sorrow and grief, and under the indefinable agony of the worst torturous and the most painful death, the holy Imam ever remained mindful of the Lord and his submission to him, with the desire not to leave the world defaulting not even a single one of the prayers namaze, prescribed by him for man in this world. Imam Hussain returned his sword back into the sheath so that he could prepare for Asr prayers. Ya ayatu han nafsul mutmaina urjui, I illa rabiki radhiyatan madhiya, fadkuliai fi, I ibadi, I wadkuliai janatiai. O soul that is at rest satisfied, return to your Lord well pleased with him, well pleasing him, so enter among my servants, and enter into my paradise. Al-Fajr 89, 27-30. His condition was such that Hussain now could not of his own efforts get down from the horse. Hussain hinted to his horse, which was presented to him by his grandfather, saying, Will you, my dear Zul Jinnah, kneel down a little to enable me to roll myself down to the ground? The faithful animal, which was itself hungry, thirsty, and wounded, spread its legs in such a way that the godly soul, one of the most brilliant stars of the heaven of divinity, slid himself down. Now lying with his bleeding wounds on the flaming sand of the burning desert, Imam Hussain, desirous of offering his prayers, and engaged in his last prayer, namaze on earth, resting his wounded forehead on a heap of the burning sand. Thus ultimately the wounded holy Imam Piba lay in communion with the Lord. When Umar son of Sa'd saw this, he ordered his army to attack him in force. Some of them threw stones, while some attacked him with swords and others with arrows. Imam Hussain was very badly wounded. He was bleeding from head to toe, and the sacred blood of the Holy Prophet Muhammad Piba, Imam Ali Piba, and Fatima Piba was flowing on the earth. Even in the last moments when that accursed wretch approached him to sever his sacred head, he says, when I approached Imam Hussain, son of Imam Ali, and my eyes fell on him, the light and burnish of his face so gripped me that I forgot my intention to kill him. The light of his face and its awe-inspiring beauty so gripped me that I was distracted from the thought of killing him. Several men, one after another, were deputed by the commander of the enemy forces to cut off the head of the holy Imam, But everyone that came near the Holy One lying on the burning sand found his lips moving and heard to say, O all-merciful Lord of the universe accepts the humble sacrifice of Hussain. And at the end of the prayers it was heard, O Lord, being repeated several times. Hearing these last prayers of Imam Hussain, none dared to cut off his holy head, even on an offer of thousands of gold coins with promises of highly tempting rewards. But Shimr the stone-hearted brute committed the heinous crime. In those days they used to train Arabic horses for the battlefield. Such a horse would show a particular reaction when its master was killed. The members of Imam Hussein's household were in the tents waiting for the Imam, that he might return to them once again, and they might see his angelic visage once again. Suddenly they heard the sound of the neighing of the Imam's horse Zul-Jinnah. They rushed to the tent's door, imagining that the Imam had come. But they saw the horse without its rider, with its saddle overturned. It was then that the children and the women raised the cries of Wa Hussaina and Wa Muhammada. They surrounded the horse, and each of them began to mourn for him. Mourning is part of human nature. Zainab ran to Imam Zainal Abidin Ba and told him what had just happened. They stood silently, tears rolling down their cheeks. A strong gust of wind blew on the desert. They felt as if nature itself was crying with them. The silence was only broken by the beating of drums from the enemy camp. They were celebrating their victory. It was indeed a hollow victory, won by a well-fed huge army of more than 30,000 fighting against an army of 72 brave warriors who died hungry and thirsty. The parting advice to Zainab and Kulthum, the details of the final separation of the holy Imam from the helpless ladies, children and other inmates of his camp, particularly from his sisters Zainab and Kulthum, are very heart-rending, and it is impossible for anyone to describe the whole sorrowful scene in a paragraph of a brief work like this. To Zainab and Kulthum, his two sisters, Imam Hussain said, Our camp will be plundered and set on fire. After I am slain, the series of calamities to you all would begin. Your heads will be stripped of your covering cloth, veils. Beware, O my dear sisters, let not patience under any suffering be lost. The enemies will take you prisoners and parade you in the streets of Kufa and Sham. This will be a very difficult time for you. Do not give up hope. You will have to be brave. Bear every calamity in the way of the Lord with patience and fortitude. Dear sisters, let not what I have done with so much of patience and fortitude would be undone by your impatience. Zainab, with tears rolling down her cheeks, promised her brother that she would not let him down. Convey my salams to my people, and tell them to remember our thirst whenever they drink water. After that, holy Imam told her sister Zainab to bring him an old garment. Because the enemy is an unmanly one, after killing me they will take my clothes as spoils. I want to wear an old garment under my clothes so my body will not be bare after I'm martyred. Then Imam Hussain turned to sister Zainab and said, I am leaving the widows and orphans in your care. My dear sister, please look after my Sakina especially. She has never been separated from me, even for a day. Please, dear sister, when you get water, give it to her first. She hasn't asked for water since her uncle Abbas died. At this, Sakina came forward and said, O father, when Muslim son of Akil was martyred, you hugged his orphan girl and patted her head. If you go, and I become an orphan who is going to pat my head. Imam's eyes filled with tears. While fighting back his tears, he slowly whispered, Sakina, my daughter, please do not cry, because after I go you will shed many tears. While I am here still alive, do not set my heart ablaze with your tears. He picked up Sakina and kissed her cheeks, knowing that these same cheeks were going to be slapped by the cruel hands of Yazid's men. The holy Imam at last came into the field, bidding good-bye to all, including advanced age nurse Fiza, not to return again to his camp, but to drink the cup of martyrdom to fulfill the covenant with the Lord, to save and secure the truth for all times until the day of judgment. Imam Hussain in the battlefield to offer the greatest sacrifice. Imam Hussain went to the battlefield wearing the Prophet's robe and turban. Imam Hussain first preached to his enemies the love of God, the obedience to the Holy Prophet, and abstinence from vice and wickedness, and at last asked the people, "Why do you kill me? Did I commit any sin or crime? Did I plunder anybody? Did I interfere with anyone's affairs?" All stood dumb, and none answered. Then the holy Imam continued, "Then why do you kill me? What answer have you to give to God and to the Holy Prophet on the day of judgment?" When no answer from the enemy forces, the holy Imam said, "You have killed all my companions, my children, my brothers, and even my little baby. Now I tell you to leave me. I will migrate to Yemen, to Iran, or even to the far-off Hind India. Stain not your hands with my blood, which is the blood of the Holy Prophet himself. You will not have salvation. It is for you, I tell you, shed not my blood and save yourselves." This last offer of the holy Imam was superb and matchless, and yet the enemies did not avail of it. It was in fact the fulfillment of the hajat, or the argument to give the last chance to the greedy devils to save themselves from the wrath of God. Umar, son of Saud, shouted to his men, "Do not be fooled by Imam Hussein's words. Attack him now." Arrows were showered on Imam Hussain. He charged into the battlefield like a lion, saying, "If you are determined to fight me, then I am ready. Watch how the grandson of the Prophet fights. See how the son of Ali and Fatima fights. Even after 3 days of hunger and thirst, I am not afraid to die. For me death is better than surrender." When the enemy saw Imam Hussain charging towards them, they thought for a moment that Imam Ali had come down from the heavens to take revenge on them. Many of them ran away. When Umar, son of Saud, saw the fear on their faces, he sent his bravest soldiers to fight Imam Hussain. There was not a single member in Yazid's army who could stand in front of Imam Hussain. The enemy troops surrounded him from all sides, but he defeated them all. Umar, son of Saud, stood back and watched, amazed at how Imam Hussain, who had suffered so much, was fighting so bravely. Imam Hussain had chosen a point for his combat which was nearer the tents of the womenfolk. That was for 2 reasons. Firstly, he knew the unmanly and inhuman character of the enemies. They lacked even the sense of honor to spare the tents of their attacks, as it was he whom they were fighting. Therefore, he wanted to restrain them from attacking his camp so long as he was alive, and had the strength to stop them. He would make a frontal attack, and they would flee. But he would not pursue them, but return to guard the tents of his womenfolk from any assault. Secondly, so long as he was alive, he wanted the members of his family to know that he was alive. Accordingly, he had chosen a point from where his voice could be heard by them. Whenever he returned after making an attack, he would stand at that point and cry out, "There is no power or strength to save that which derives from God, the Exalted and the Almighty." His cries would reassure the women who knew that the Imam was still alive. The Imam had told them not to come out of the tents as long as he was alive. He had told them that they must not make any untoward utterance which might reduce their reward with God. He had told them that they would find deliverance, and that their ultimate end would be a good one, that God will punish their enemies. Hussain, son of Imam Ali's sense of manly honor, and their own sense of feminine honor, did not permit them to come out. Accordingly, when they heard the Imam utter La hawla wala quwwata illa billahil aliyyil azim, they felt reassured. And as the Imam had come back to them once or twice after bidding them farewell, they still expected the Imam to return. The Hashemite Prince Ali Akbar's martyrdom after Abbas, came the turn of Ali Akbar to go to the battlefield. The battle drums of the enemies were now getting louder and louder. It is reported that this 18-year-old son was so very much loved by one and all in the camp that the account of his taking leave of his aunts, sisters, brothers, and other relatives is so pathetic that none can resist shedding at least a few tears over the heart-rending event. At last, when the holy Imam sent Ali Akbar, the Ahmadi Thani I, Muhammad II, to the battlefield, he raised his head towards heaven and said, Lord, here I sent in your way the one who resembled the most with the holy Prophet Muhammad. Whenever we did desire to have a view of the holy face departed away from us, we used to look at the face of this youth. Lord, Hussain has won Ali Akbar, and he is sent to be sacrificed for your cause. Had I many more like him, I would have similarly offered them all in your way. Is not this offer more acceptable to God than that of Abraham, who offered with his eyes blindfolded? Is not this a greater sacrifice than that of Ishmael? When Ali Akbar went to the battlefield and faced the enemy with all the bravery that he inherited from his grandfather Imam Ali Piba, it is reported that the enemy forces were so much amazed at his resemblance with the Holy Prophet that such of those who had seen him before wondered if the Holy Prophet Piba had reappeared in the world to help his dear grandson Hussain. People were so anxious to have a look at the enchanting beauty of the youth that those in the rear of the enemy's ranks, mounted on the horses and camels, even stood on the backs of the animals to have a look at the matchless and the wonder-striking beauty of this son of the holy Imam. Ali Akbar reminded the enemy that his father, Imam Hussain, spent his life in the way of Islam and did no harm to them. By spilling his blood, they were making the holy Prophet Piba very sad. Umar, son of Saud, told his troops not to listen to Ali Akbar and ordered them to attack him. One by one, he fought them with great skill and killed many of them. Ali Akbar received several wounds and was losing a lot of blood. The thirst was getting more unbearable. At the moment he longed to see his loved ones for the last time. Ali Akbar turned his horse back towards his camp. He found his aged 57 father standing at the entrance of the tent, watching the battle between his beloved thirsty son and the enemy. Holy Hussain congratulated his son, and then said, I am sad that I do not have any water to give you. Ali Akbar met each and every one of his family. They were all in tears because they knew that this time he wasn't coming back alive. It was not long before Imam Hussain heard the painful cry from the battlefield. Ali Akbar fell with a fatal wound in his chest. He called out to his father to come to him quickly. Imam Hussain went towards his son and found him lying in a pool of his own blood. When he saw his son, he cried out, Here, I am my son. Please talk to me. Ali Akbar was in great pain. The broken end of the lance was sticking out of his chest, and blood was gushing out. Ali Akbar died in his father's arms. God alone knows what a patient heart the holy Imam had been endowed with, which never gave way against any catastrophe, even that of the loss of such a son. The holy Imam stood looking at his son dying before his eyes, and lifting his head towards heaven said, Lord, it will be quite sufficient for your Hussain if you accept this sacrifice, and if you are pleased with this humble offer. Imam Hussain lifted Ali Akbar carefully, as if protecting him from any more pain. He cried all the way back to his camp. Note, Layla, daughter of Abu Mara and the cousin of Yazid, is the mother of Ali Akbar. According to scholars, she was not a